Hi, I'm Jim Watkins, and welcome to our self publishing seminar. It's been called a variety of titles over the years, everything from exploring your publishing options to self publishing is not for losers. And so, whatever they're calling it at this conference, it is a joy to be with you. I'm assuming you're here at this class because you've realized just how difficult this whole publishing process is. There are fewer and fewer publishers producing fewer and fewer titles by fewer and fewer authors. And I'm also assuming that you have a file of rejection slips from both publishers and agents saying your manuscript doesn't suit their editorial needs at this time. And finally, I'm assuming you're discouraged enough or desperate enough to attend this class. So, welcome. You are among friends who understand and are being taught by someone who's not only well published, I have 20 traditional books, but someone who's also well rejected and the author of 3 self published books. And it is a tough market. Each time it's gotten harder and harder to find a publisher, and I think I've got one of the best agents in the business. So let's begin by destroying some stereotypes about self publishing. Myth number 1, self-publishing is for losers who can't get published any other way than to publish it themselves. The Living Bible was self-published. No publisher saw a market for a paraphrase Bible, and so Ken Taylor added it himself on his kitchen table and launched the $1 million seller along with Tyndale House. T.D. Jakes' first book, Woman Thou Art Loosed, was self-published, and it's been a bestseller ever since. Richard Paul Evans, The Christmas Box, actually started out as a mimeographed book for his family and friends. It rocketed to bestseller status and became a movie. And of course, we have The Shack by William Paul Young, a movie that starred Oprah herself. And the whole Chicken Soup commercial kitchen are self-published. So I'm waiting for Chicken Soup for Radio Clowns. I mean, there's a whole industry of that. And they're certainly not losers. Others who have self-published include Mark Twain, Zane Grey, Carl Sandburg, Edgar Rice Burroughs, George Bernard Shaw, Thomas Paine, Edgar Allan Poe, Rudyard Kipling, Henry David Thoreau, Benjamin Franklin, Walt Whitman. And so there are some real advantages to self-publishing. First of all, royalty publishing can take up to 2 years to get your book into print, whereas self-publishing can be as few as 2 to 6 months, and POD, excuse me, can be 6 to 8 weeks. And so you control the title as well. For instance, I gave my youth group 10 possible titles for a book for teens about sex. Teen Sex Survival Manual came out number 1. Sex is Not a 4-Letter Word was the absolute worst title, in their opinion. And my daughter said, I would never take a book with sex on the cover to school. Well, you can guess which one the publisher chose. Yes, sex is not a 4-letter word. I ghosted a book for a national speaker using animals to visualize the personality types with lion, golden retriever, beaver, and otter. It was specifically for families, so I suggested Taming the Family Zoo and wrote a whole book with that theme. Oh no, the marketing changed it to the very engaging title of Connections. What? You also control the cover. I was so fortunate that Worthy was willing to change the cover for Imitation of Christ. But another book, my agent had signed a contract for the book, gotten a decent advance for me. The proposed cover was so ugly that we backed away from the deal. Now, another advantage is you control the content. With self-publishing, you have total control. The same book with the ugly cover was a humor book, and the publisher started deleting all the humor. So you control the content. And best of all, you get all the profit. Average royalty book is 12 to 15% net. That's the profit the publisher makes. And so you're getting about 1/8 of the profits. And so if you have a platform, you have the potential to make much more than that than you would get from royalties simply by selling from the back of the room. In fact, one speaker has snubbed royalty publishers altogether. He said, why should I get $1 royalty for each book they sell when I can make $10 for each book I sell. Stephen King and J.K. Rowling have also self-published. So, self-publishing is not for losers. Myth number 2, self-publishing is vanity publishing. Now, vanity publishers, and you see them in all the writers' magazines, will print anything with little or no editing at inflated prices. And they just put a cover on whatever the author writes. Steve Lawby, who started a self-publishing company, tells the horror story of a pastor who paid $55,000 for 500 books. That is $100 a piece. And vanity publishers often have hidden costs. I saw one that said binding not included. What are you supposed to do? Grab a bottle of Elmer's glue and bind your own book? And those promises your book will be advertised in the New York Times. It's a classified ad with the publisher's name and info at the top, and then a list of titles and authors. So there are some self-publishing pariahs out there. Bookstores and libraries probably won't carry them. Magazines won't review them. But you can be a real winner in self-publishing because number 3, self-publishing is not subsidy publishing. That's another well-advertised ripoff. A subsidy publisher will promise that his company already has a market for thousands of books, and they just need 2,000 copies to make it worth their investment. And if you'll buy 2,000 copies at an inflated price, publisher never prints the other 2,000 for that thousands in the ready market, and there probably never was a ready market. So avoid deals with subsidy publishers. Here's another myth. Self-publishing will get your book into the marketplace. So a much bigger myth is that a big royalty publisher will put your book into the marketplace. And here's the conundrum of marketing books. Publishers put almost all their advertising dollars into their most popular authors' books. Now, one would think they'd want to prop up sales of the slower-selling books, but success breeds success. So if a book is successful, they will put even more money behind it. And if it's not an instant success, it quickly goes out of print. So if you're a first-time author, you'll get your book sent out for review. If you're lucky, maybe some TV and radio interviews, but probably no print ads in the trade journals, no displays at the Christian bookstores, no book signing tour, no end caps. Those books, they're cover out on the ends of the shelves. Actually, publishers pay to have that placement. Maybe you'll get some bookmarks to promote it. But here's sort of an urban legend that John Grisham's first book, A Time to Kill, was self-published, and that led the way to Doubleday picking up his second book, The Firm, for a $200,000 advance in movie rights. Actually, a small, unknown publisher called Winwood Press printed 5,000 copies, which Grisham acknowledges we couldn't give them away. And so he drove around to bookstores selling them out of the back of his car. Winwood is out of business. John Grisham, however, is doing quite well. But he had to do the marketing for his very first book. And you will do all the marketing for your first book, whether your book is picked up by a big publisher or you self-publish. There are only a handful of authors who simply write, and their publisher does all the rest of the work. That would be ideal, but the reality is this. Unless you're willing to spend as much time marketing your book as writing your book, you're only going to sell a few to family and friends. Let me repeat that. Unless you're willing to spend as much time marketing your book as writing your book, you'll only sell a few to family and friends. I've had 2 self-publishing books picked up by larger publishers. Unfortunately, they weren't Doubleday, and there was no $200,000 advance, but it was only because I aggressively marketed them and proved to the publisher there was indeed a market. And even if they are picked up by publishers, I had to do much of the marketing for the royalty books as well as for the self-published books. Now, what royalty publishers offer as well as EA Books, and full disclosure, I work for them, is distribution. It's making your book available to any bookstore virtually anywhere. Because bookstores don't buy from publishers, they buy from distributors. But it's also the distributors that's going to cut into the author's profits. Bookstores want at least a 40% discount. Amazon wants over 50%. Walmart wants to buy a whole skid at a huge discount. So it looks impressive to see your book in Walmart or Amazon, but you may not make a dime on that sale, since most publishers have a clause that you don't get royalties on books discounted more than 50%. So even the phenomenal sales of The Purpose-Driven Life was a result of a major marketing campaign in pastors.com, and it didn't hurt that Rick Warren was a popular mega pastor, and so created this wonderful marketing strategy. So don't fall for the myth that self-publishers or even royalty publishers are going to market your book. You are the marketer. Distribution provides availability, but you provide the desirability. Now, myth number 5, self-publishing will make you rich and famous. Well, only if you're one in the 1 million who sells a million. Average number of copies of books sold in America is 500. And 5,000 to 10,000 copies are considered good in traditional publishing. My Imitation of Christ has sold 12,000 plus, but I still haven't earned back my advance. So I haven't earned a cent since signing the contract and cashing the advance. So here's what you need to ask. What is your goal? Is this a book for family and friends? Is this a book for the commercial market? Now, either one of those is a worthy goal. I've written a memoir for my family that I'm releasing on my 70th birthday, but I have absolutely no illusions that even my family will be interested. But I want to leave a legacy. I can't count the number of family books I've edited over the years, but it's a meaningful project. And a lot of missionary stories that have absolutely no commercial market, but they are valuable for raising support. They're leaving a testimony for their children and grandchildren. And so if you're eligible for AARP, I would encourage you to write your legacy. Now, at EA Books, we have an Easy Pub package that's easy, it's economical, so please stop by and see me or write to me at jim@eabookspublishing.com. But here are 3 questions to ask if you want to commercially publish a book. Number 1, has a royalty publisher praised your book and told you there isn't a large enough market for them to publish it? For instance, Thomas Nelson won't look at a proposal unless they're convinced it will sell 100,000 copies per year. Most publishers feel a nonfiction book has been a success if it sells between 5,000 and 10,000 copies. A fiction is around 5,000 copies. But publishers can't stay in business unless the books sell well. So, number 2, do you have a way to reach that niche market? There have been some great success stories of business books being self-published. What Color is Your Parachute? The 1-Minute Manager. At the time, publishers didn't see these as having a wide enough audience, and so you will need a platform from which to sell your book, or you will not be financially successful. So, do you have a speaking ministry where you can market them? If you're speaking regularly, you do need to have a book to sell at the back of the room. And if you don't find a royalty publisher, it's essential to self-publish. That book will allow you to continue ministering long after you've left town. In fact, Gary Smalley found a publisher, but not before selling his books at his seminar. So a rule of thumb for speakers is that you will sell about 10% of your audience. So if you speak to 5,000 people a year, you can reasonably sell 500 copies per year. Do you also have an online ministry to that market? Do you have some way to reach that market? You are going to be the promoter to local churches, local Christian organizations, local support groups, local newspapers. They love covering local authors. And so once you've contacted every one of those locally, fan out regionally. I use the Acts 2 method to get my books out into Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. So start out locally, and then you move to the district level. And as you get a reputation among your district, then you move to national level. And so do you have a way to reach that niche market? And then the third question to ask before you self-publish is, do you have the finances to do it professionally? Now, some of the stigmas of self-published books are lack of editing, amateurish cover designs, yeah, you've seen them, poor typesetting. The Apostle Paul tells us to think on those things that are excellent and praiseworthy, and those should be the characteristics of a self-published book. So one thing you want to do is to redefine publishing. Publishing is making information available to the public. So think beyond books. And here's some kind of out-of-the-box ideas for you. Number one is online publishing. This is the golden age for authors publishing. Things like blogs, e-zines, music on YouTube, podcasts, videos, virtual reality, whatever the next big thing is, whatever that is, here's an opportunity for you to publish. My website includes articles, audio talks, book excerpts, cartoons, music, comedy drama scripts, videos. So ask yourself, is there a way I can get online with my message? Number two, write down social networking and then cross it out and put email newsletters in its place. So notice I've scratched that out. Social networking, such as Facebook and Instagram, appears to be the place to go, and publishers want their authors on social media. But greedy Mark Zuckerberg allows only a small, tiny percentage of your friends to see your posts without paying him for advertising. And that's how he has made his billions of dollars. And so I'm not really a henny penny, the sky is falling down person, but with social media canceling people who are not politically correct, there's also a danger that you could lose those thousands of friends when your page is shut down for not being woke or properly PC. And that's why email lists are so incredibly important. They are one part of the successful publishing trinity. And those three members of the publishing trinity are your email list, your website, and yes, your social media. And here's something Zuckerberg won't tell you. Email is 40 times more effective than Facebook because you can send it to all your friends. They're not going to limit you to just a fraction. You get to send it to all your friends. Now, full disclosure, if you get 25% open rate, that is considered good, but that is still 40 times bigger reach than Facebook will get you. And here's the great thing, you own your list. No one can steal your followers. You are not beholden to the PC review board. That is your list, and you can freely market to that list. So email lists. Number three are ebooks. Growing trend that cuts down on the cost of printing and shipping. You sell the rights for customers to download your books online, and there are several ebook publishers who will set it up for a fee. Then you receive royalties on each of those books downloaded. You'll still need, though, whether it's a print book or an ebook, you're going to need a professional cover. You'll still have to have editing. You'll still have to have formatting. You'll still have to have distribution. Now, the advantage is the cost is 10% less of the cost of print because there are no physical books to print, no warehousing, no distribution costs. The disadvantage is that virtual books really haven't overcome print books. Even Stephen King failed with one of his ebooks. And I personally think with an ebook, you can't underline it, you can't dog-ear it, You can't sniff books. I love the smell of books. I go to the library and just smell all that knowledge and adventure. So also, you have to have a reading device for an ebook. And few people want to read off their computer if they've been on their computer for 8 hours a day. But it's a low-risk option for self-publishing. At ebooks, you can get an ebook for right around $1,500, and you get on more than 100 outlets. And then the biggest game changer in book publishing since the Gutenberg Press is number 4, print on demand, or POD books. No more garages full of unsold books. It's actually a sophisticated $1 million copy machine. Prints the books with UV-coated covers, laser printed one at a time. You purchase them only as you need them, and there's no minimum purchase. So the pro is there's a limited press run. As you sell the books, you order whatever you need in any quantity. So if you're speaking at a conference and think, I can sell 10 to 20 books, call up your POD publisher, have that number sent directly to the conference. Now, the con of POD is there is no publishing or quantity discount. If one book costs $3, 1,000 books are going to cost $3. And so the biggest price of the book is going to be the editing, the designing, and the print prep. And so once that traditional publishing press starts rolling, the more you print, the lower the price gets. And second press runs usually are about 30% less when you're using traditional offset press. So if you have a huge speaking audience, social media following, then traditional offsetting printing, not POD, is going to be for you. And the point where traditional becomes more affordable seems to be around 750 copies. So if you think you're going to sell less than 750, POD is the way to go. But you can buy 1,000 traditional books for the same cost as 750 PODs. So just keep that in mind. If you feel like you've got the market for it, traditional offset printing may be the best. Now, the pros of that is you control the process. The con is you control the process. You're going to be responsible for hiring a cover designer, an editor, interior formatter, uploading it, distributing it, getting your ISBN, going to the local or the Library of Congress, getting your library numbers, your copyright. You're going to be doing all of that stuff. So in self-publishing, you are doing or contracting all of those tasks. Now, EA Books advertises itself as partnership publishing because we're doing all those tasks for you. So yes, you can self-publish for virtually free with KDP, which is part of Amazon, Lulu, Spark, etc. But you are going to personally do every single task. Or you can partner with a self-publisher like EA Books, where we have professional designers, editors, people who know how to navigate the nightmare of working with the ISBN company, Library of Congress for copyrights, etc., setting you up in all the distribution channels. And so free can really cost you with an inferior product, amateurish covers, poor editing, crude formatting, and those things can really harm your reputation. And so, like I said, in full disclosure, I work for EA Books. I get a commission, but I wouldn't work for them if they weren't one of the most ethical and excellent publishers out there. So let me just give you a couple advantages of EA Books. If you Google Christian self-publishers, you're going to get 33 million results. If you limit that by putting it in quotations, you're down to 3,580 Christian self-publishers. And you probably know that if you put it in quotes, you'll dramatically reduce your search results, get better matches. Anyway, so most of these are one-person companies, whereas EA Books has over 20 professional editors, designers, formatters who have successfully published hundreds of books in the last 10 years. And one of just a handful of self-publishers who are invited to writers' conferences. And so that's sort of an endorsement of legitimacy and ethical processes if you see a self-publishing company being represented at Christian writers' conferences. And one of the ethical things, I think, is having all of our editing priced separately. I worked for another company, good company, but they had a set fee for everyone. So excellent writers and those republishing out-of-print books were charged for virtually no work. And then there was no consideration for the length, as long as it was under 250 pages. So if you were an excellent writer, you are being charged for the same editing as someone that needed massive amounts of editing. And so we only charge you by what we edit. And some people just need a good proofread. That's all it needs. Now, also EA Books provides distribution on all the major platforms for print, ebooks, audio, marketing assistance, includes websites, social media, news releases, etc. And best of all the prices for our services are clearly listed online and in print. And so if you don't see prices on a self-publisher's website, run, because there are piranhas in the water. Publishers who have hidden fees, they're poor quality, they charge you royalties for what you have paid for. What? And there are no minimum copies required. One self-publisher requires the author to buy 2,500 copies. And again, average book only sells 500. So check them out. Check us out. You can go to predatorsandeditors.com, go to the Better Business Bureau, current customers, current reviews. Now make sure those reviews are not on the publisher's site, but go off their site and find out what people are really saying about that self-publisher. Compare their covers. Again, look who's at writers' conferences. Directors are good at weeding out the bad guys. There are only 3 I can wholeheartedly recommend. EA Books, you knew that. ACW Press, it's owned by Reg Forder at American Christian Writers, and Redemption Press, that's Athena Dean's company. And I just love the honesty and charity of our publisher. Sherry Cowell told me, make sure you mention ACW and Redemption so this isn't an infomercial. And that is so Sherry. That's why I love working for EA Books. Which brings us to the dollar and cents. How can you finance your book? Now, our sales go up right after tax refunds are issued. And so that's a great way to use your tax refund. Or you can 3 months in advance, you start pre-selling copies, and that'll give you a good indication of future sales, and you feed that money into the pre-publication process. You may want to get investors. Do you have friends who would like to invest in your books? Now make sure you get everything in writing so it's all very well specified. Everybody knows what their risks are going into it. Or EA Books can set up a payment plan that works for you. But here's the thing. Do not risk more than you can lose. Whatever you do, don't sell the house. Don't take out a second mortgage. I'd think twice about putting it on my credit card. So ask those hard questions. Now, the good news is you can usually recoup your expenses by only selling about 200 PODs. However, one woman printed 15 copies, hardcover books, for her children and grandchildren. That came out to $100 per copy. But it's kind of like the credit card ad. Books for family members, $1,599. Lasting legacy, priceless. So if you're writing a book for family and friends, it may be worth the money to spend $10, $20 per book to have that legacy. But like the credit card company, $1,500 to print, but you have a lasting legacy, and that is priceless. Now, hopefully your book has a life-changing message that needs to get published. Remember, published isn't limited to a printed book. It can be a blog. It can be a regular emailing. It could be a YouTube channel. It could be an ebook. It could be an audiobook, even a print book. And so I've had success, and a fair amount of success, with all these media. So if you have any questions, I know it's hard to ask questions when this is a pre-recorded presentation, but just email me, jim@eabookspublishing.com. I would be happy to answer your questions. I would be happy to set up a free 15-minute appointment for you. So just email me, again, jim@eabookspublishing.com. You can also go to my website, jameswatkins.com/writing. There's just a ton of resources there for you, plus some other ways to make sure that you're not being scammed by self-publishers. There's an important post about agents, and there are the good, the bad, and ugly of those, and just a lot of inspiration there. So again, please email me if I can be of any help to you. We'll set up a time to talk. Thanks again, and remember that self-publishing is not for losers. I pray that you have great success in your publishing. God bless you.